all works.
Okay, great.
All right. Now that I've had help from my right-hand person, we're good to go. If all would rise for this Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Our agenda this evening is what you just did, which is the call to order. Approval of minutes of May 10th, 2023. Thank you. Recognition of Abigail Cushman for National Merit Scholarship Award. Superintendent's report, the Assistant Superintendent's report, Director of Finance and Administration report. School committee member reports. Building project updates. Citizens request. Summer meal support. HR report and full-time equivalent update. Student handbooks review, elementary schools, Mill Pond School, Gibbons Middle School, Westborough High School. The approval of the stipend list for 2023 to 2024. Finalization of the school committee schedule of meeting dates from 2023 to 2024. Strategic plan end of the year report. Summary of the superintendent's goals, and if we need one, an executive session, after which we would adjourn. So with that, I'll ask for a motion for the approval of minutes from May 10th, 2023.
So moved.
I'll second.
Very good. Thank you both. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Recognition of Abigail Cushman for National Scholarship Award.
Thank you. These are my favorites. This is a time of year where I think Abby gets to lead us with this recognition into the beginning, what we consider kind of the senior home stretch of celebration, recognition, and just really looking at each class's unique, just special journey through senior year. And so today we want to take a moment, and when I do my report, I'll share kind of a little bit on behalf of what would have been our student report, a lot about upcoming senior week events. But I think as we look at this, it's just very important to pause, and I think Abby exemplifies really the highest type of honor and skill set that we see in our students. So Abby has been awarded a National Merit Scholarship Award, and that is an award out of over 15,000 students across the United States, from which she was selected and given one of the really prestigious National Merit Scholarship Awards. And so I think we often bring students here to celebrate different types of recognition, and this is a journey that celebrates her intellect, her effort, her family, and the school journey that she's been on with us. And it is an honor to look forward to giving her graduation diploma next week, but that for now I really think I want to have her come forward, and I think again a chance for you to make comments, and then we will have her come up. We have a certificate for her to recognize that, and it's not like an Eagle Scout. You don't get to grill them on their project, so you can actually just make any comments if you would like, but I think it's really an honor for us tonight to begin our meeting as we look at academic excellence and the work of the district to see such amazing high achievements. So Abby, really congratulations on every level. I would just turn it over to you if you had any comments, and then we will have Abby come up for a photo and we'll give her her certificate.
I just make a very simple one, which is a tremendous achievement, and we're very happy that it's you in our school system and not somebody in somebody else's school system. So.
Yeah,
Jackie?
congratulations, Abby. Can you come up to the microphone first? Just sit right there so people can say hi. I'd love to hear from you just how you felt when you and your family found out that you were awarded the scholarship.
I'm just so thankful to have had the opportunity to have an education in Westborough with such fantastic schools. So I was really grateful and proud, and also thankful for all of the people who supported me throughout my educational journey.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to echo that. Congratulations, and your comments here, the humility and gratitude that you're expressing is really, it's a signal of your maturity. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Abby, congratulations, and I wish you all the best of luck in your future endeavors, going to college and all of that, so congratulations.
I think the other thing that I'll just speak on behalf of Abby, and she can best represent herself, I'm sure. You know, we pride ourselves in trying to acknowledge, like, your journey is never going to be perfect. It's going to have ups and downs. We make mistakes, families make mistakes, students make mistakes. That is what learning is. And the journey of however many years, be it 12 years, 5 years, as a family joins us, we know those are going to have those highs and lows. And we at least stay in relationships and want to provide the absolute best for families. And when I look at a student like Abby, where you feel like you've been able to access those opportunities and have a good experience, it makes us happy. I also think we pride ourselves in raising a well-rounded student. And I wonder if you could maybe just for a second, I told you I would not put you on the spot, so I promise I won't make you do like a whole list, but maybe some of the clubs and experiences. And you're not just grinding away your academics, are you? You've done other things.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you could share a little bit about high school and some of the things you did.
Let's see. I'm part of the school band. I'm in marching band. I do theater. I really enjoy creative activities. I love writing. I'm a big creative writer. Yeah, stuff like that.
Stuff like that. The way she makes it sound really like small, but when you're in theater, it's very consuming and a really important part of your overall identity. And certainly our marching band is something we feel a lot of personal pride about because there's not many of them around. So there's a lot of time and effort that it takes to do all of it. So thank you. We're going to have Abby come up. We're going to give her, after all that work, you get a little piece of paper. But I want to make sure you come forward, and these guys will come out and we'll do a photo. It's like the beginning of lots of accolades. It's like a warm-up for you, so we'll give you that.
How are you? Huh? Oh, thank you.
I need to picture that one.
Yeah, we're big partners. Yeah, you get a good stretch of front.
Are we switching seats?
No, I'm trying to sit in front of my own pad.
You lost my
That's
computer.
okay, but you can have this. You can have this seat. Okay, at this point, the superintendent's report, please.
All right, so as I said, Abby's our kickoff tonight, and so one of the things that I would just recognize is there's a lot of really exciting closure activities going on. Going Buggy is breaking loose across the elementary schools. Concerts are drawing to a close. I was able to attend a couple more last week, and a lot of stuff kind of draws into the school level where classroom teachers are starting to do kind of closure activities, end of the year work together in their classroom as they kind of draw down the end of the year. We get invited to lots of opportunities to see the project-based learning work over at Mill Pond that they are showing us, as well as like Gibbons inviting us to different poetry events and closure at the end of the year, the authors events. So really exciting time around academic excellence, but also relationship and just where we are at kind of letting students see the close of the year. I will say that around senior week, there's a whole variety of things that go on. I think one of the things that we want families to know is that our closure with seniors is something that goes on all year, from the work of the senior parade where they come in and they do the spirit challenge work activities, and then also their work around senior week with a senior ball that comes up, which is a really highlight. I know my daughter found it one of her best memories. We do the baccalaureate on that Friday, and there's a memory lane event with all of the students turning in their picture boards that is open to the community. It decorates the track and part of the field area, and it really is enjoyable to go see like their kind of photo journey of, and it's all the students in the class. And we left that up for a week, and some families take them down right away because they want to keep them and not have them get rained on or anything. But through Friday evening, that's really, if you want to come out for a really fun event, families are strolling around and just visiting and socializing after baccalaureate and getting a chance to really celebrate. The next morning, they have what we call Senior Sunrise. That's a self-proclaimed senior event that's evolved over the last couple of years, where they gather together. I think they'll gather on the upper field at sunrise and start the day together as a senior class. Then they go home and hopefully go back to bed. But they started that 2 years ago and have continued it. And so that will be going on. And then we have graduation on Saturday, and then that evening project graduation. So it really is a variety of things that move us through the close of the year, and students are finishing internships and all sorts of other things. So we're coming into like the hectic, busy stretch, and then we finish with seniors and we turn towards then closure in the next 2 weeks with all our other grades. So very exciting stuff ahead. And I believe that's most of my report for tonight because we have a lot to cover.
Daniel?
I would just, the one update I would give you at this time of year, there's lots of planning going on for the beginning of next year. And as you walk around the schools, the planning is the teachers talking to the grade that they're going to be at, especially at the elementary level, handing their students off to, and making sure those placements are done very thoughtfully. So it's a lot of work and thought to make sure the classes are well balanced and the students are going to get the services they need next year and the appropriate teachers. But that's a lot of, in addition to the celebrations that goes on at this time of year, is sort of getting ready to, before teachers and the students go away, to make sure that they're ready to come back next year, that we're ready for them when they come back. That's all I have to report.
You. David?
Just a very brief update. We are heavy in the process of closing FY23. As per usual, going to give a shout out to the business office team, working really closely with pretty much everybody to divide and conquer some of the objectives we have before closing this year, which include POs, encumbrances, payroll, lump sum, all those things. We are also keeping a close eye on things related to NRT. We're trying to get to the handle on the bottom of those. Don't have any updates as of right now that can share, but hopefully in the next few days or so, we'll be hearing from NRT in respects to our specific drivers and their status. So we'll provide an update, either written or some sort of formal messaging as to what we've heard from NRT on that front. We're hopeful. As you know, we avoided a strike, but at the same time, we want to make sure that our drivers are taken care of and that we really respect what they do for our kids. So keeping an eye on that. So between the close and transition and NRT, that's my update right now, but we'll keep you abreast if anything arises on any of those fronts.
Thank you. School committee reports. Jakub?
Okay, thank you. I always have the privilege of going first. Not much to report. I just want to bring to attention one of those events that you mentioned, Amber. The Spring Fest is happening tomorrow at Mill Pond, organized by the Mill Parent group. So I recommend that the families with children in the school come with their siblings. There'll be music, food, karaoke, raffles, sports. It was a big, big success last year, especially the Gaga Ball, I guess, was heavily attended. The other question I had was, I think there is no senior parade this year, correct?
So there is no senior parade this year, and there's actually a couple questions, we got some emails about that. I understand there was some kind of general discussion. So just for context, the senior parade was introduced 3 years ago during COVID, and then after we returned to school, they did the parade last year, an additional year, and there was more discussion about it in terms of whether or not it was going to be a continuation or not. It was hosted by the Westborough Spirit Committee. So we let students know it was being hosted on their behalf. I think people thought it was a school-based piece, and then we've canceled that. It was hosted by the community for students during COVID, and I think the discussion was that now that we have all these other things going on, that the town was going to move away from hosting that. So I think it's important to recognize, like, the Spirit Committee stepped up and carried students during a time when other things hadn't been able to happen. And so I just want to be fair to the Spirit Committee. They didn't abandon these seniors. These are good people in the community that care about our students. And so there had been questions about the safety. I know the police had not been a fan of it, and there was cost incurred, and so there was discussion last year about it. I don't believe that, I think the Westborough Spirit Committee thought that it represented the time that it needed to exist, and then they wanted to move their work in other directions. So I respect that, and, I think we'll make sure, as I said, like Senior Sunrise, is that, like, we always have things kind of coming in and out of what we do with them, but that event appears to be, coming to a close. So Brian was going to put out a little bit of information about that. He put out a senior announcement this week, and he just kind of reiterated so that parents and kids would see that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It just, a lot of people reached out to me and asked about it.
Yeah, no, I'm glad. That's why you do reports.
It was a big success,
Yeah.
I think, in those past 3 years.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. Okay, that's all for me. Thank you.
Kristen?
Sure. I just want to thank everyone involved with the junior prom last Friday. Everyone seemed to have a really good time with that. So thank you to all of the staff who chaperoned and made sure it was a really fun and safe event. And Project Graduation is looking for additional volunteers on the overnight shift. If you're interested in helping out the seniors have a really great night on the night of their graduation, you can hang out at Teamworks from like 1 to 5 a.m. And Project Graduation would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Steve?
Nothing to report tonight.
Sarah?
Same, nothing to report tonight.
And I have nothing at this point, but I will have a comment in regards to building projects, which is the next item on the agenda. We are still negotiating with the construction manager relative to various and sundry components of the failed school in terms of settlements for various pieces of it. That discussion continues, and eventually we'll work through all of that and be able to close out the project financially. Most of the physical work is done. We have had some glitches in regards to the HVAC system, that is the geothermal system, in terms of programming, but hopefully that will be behind us shortly. And work with some of the trees that died over the winter, and other issues with the lower field are also being resolved. So that continues, but obviously not at a very hearty pace because there isn't that much left to do. One of the other things in regards to the project is the performance of the solar system. It's not the planetary, but the solar panels and their performance. We've begun now with summer and type weather, as well as clearer skies, although lately the smoke from the Canadian Rockies causes us the milky sky. But anyway, the bottom line is that we actually receive money now in two different ways. The first is the actual value for the the solar energy that's created, and that is paid for as part of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts solar energy, solar RECs is what it's called, renewable energy credits. We get paid for every excess kilowatt hour that we deliver to the grid, 21 cents. And in addition to that, for every kilowatt that we generate from solar, whether we use it or whether we put it to the grid, we get an additional 4 cents. And so the money is distributed in two different ways. The 4-cent piece comes as a check to the town, and the 21 cents comes as a credit against the bill. What's nice about the credit against the bill is it allows us at some point in time to credit another meter, electric meter, the value of those credits, which was the plan all along, to be able to reduce the cost of energy in a different school other than Fales. So that program seems to be running very well. And as you might guess, because we are getting paid for excess energy, it means that all the electric needs of the school are being met by the solar program there, which is also part of the plan. And we're actually one of the very first in the Commonwealth to have built a school that's designed to primarily be powered throughout the year with electric energy that's created as part of the project. So, and the other projects that we have talked about in anticipation of work that we will be able to do when we have definitive bids, which are targeted to arrive in a timely way relative to the fall town meeting, which is work at Hastings as well as chillers on the roof at the high school, and that continues. So with that, the next item on the agenda is the citizens' request. Do we have anybody here who wishes to come to the desk here? Let me read our rules in regards to citizens' requests, at which point you'll have to decide which one comes first. Unless,
There's three people.
okay, are you two together and one or three separate? Okay, very good. So as a reminder, we have a policy regarding citizens' requests. Some important pieces of this policy include that you must be a citizen resident of Westborough. Speakers are allowed to address the school committee about issues within the school committee's purview, Westborough School District policy or its budget. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak to the school committee. Written comments longer than 3 minutes may be presented to the presiding chair of the school committee before or after the meeting. And you are welcome to hand me those additional comments in writing now or send them via email, and I will share them with the other school committee members. Public comment by residents at this meeting is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between individuals in the school committee. It is an individual's opportunity to express an opinion on issues within the school committee's authority. Our role is to listen carefully to what you have to say to us and share it with us as well as the community. Clapping, cheering, calling out, or any other noise following a speaker is not allowed. A reminder that if not following the policy, this may cut into your 3-minute time limit. Additionally, I want to remind members of the school committee that when making a point of order, please address your concern to the chair initially rather than to the speaker. If there is anyone here tonight that wishes to make a statement to the school committee, and you've already identified who you are, please come forward, state your name, address, and speak into the microphone, which is on the desk. And we will keep track of your 3 minutes time. And when 3 minutes are up, we'll ask you to conclude your comments and allow someone else to speak. So please come forward, whoever wishes to come first.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Alla Baranovsky, 27 Old Coach Road. I'm a parent of 4 children, 2 of them in the Westborough Public Schools, 2 of them on their way. I'm also the current chair of WeCare, which is Westborough Committee for Anti-Racism in Education. I'm here to tell you today that during this school year, my 2 biracial children at Gibbons and Mill Pond have heard the N-word around them multiple times. My 4th grader at Mill Pond heard a classmate refer to another classmate as the N-word in gym class and reported this to the gym teacher. Nothing was done to process the incident. In my 7th grader's math classroom, a student recently drew a swastika on his desk. To her credit, the teacher, Miss Avery, addressed the issue immediately by communicating that this was unacceptable. Unfortunately, in her clear response, Miss Avery is in the minority. In preparation for today, I spoke with other parents of children in Westborough schools. A 6th grader reported a Black classmate of hers being called the N-word. There was no follow-up. A 7th grader reported a child playing Minecraft saying that he was building concentration camps to put all the Jews into. The same child later walked around the cafeteria asking his classmates to answer the question, "Are you Hitler or are you gay?" In these incidents, Westborough is not an outlier. According to a new ADL report, Massachusetts is now second only to Texas in the instances and prevalence of hate crimes. In my recent conversation with Rabbi Gorevitz, she notes that families in her congregation also report similar things. In all these cases in Westborough, however, parents and children followed the proper procedure. They reported hate speech according to the procedure outlined in the student handbook. What they heard as a response was things like this: the student has a Jewish relative and comes from a good family. They would never do such a thing. The swastika was drawn with an eraser. I couldn't even see it in light the following day. This makes it difficult to investigate what happened. Does hearing these stories make you feel uncomfortable? I really hope so. Middle school is notorious for incidents where children display a remarkable lack of impulse control and poor decision-making. This also makes it the time when it's imperative to teach them about just how unacceptable and harmful hate speech can be. To that end, we call for the following: an immediate formation of a task force that would develop a transparent crisis intervention plan involving documentation of all steps taken to address instances of hate speech. That's 1. 2, arrange for professional mediators and identity counselors to address children and teachers at schools in Westborough. 3, counseling for affected children. 4, training the teachers to guide discussion in the classroom after these incidents, not burying our heads in the sand and pretending that these hate crimes are not happening. 5, a clear and diligent reporting of data within the school district and out to organizations like ADL. Daryl Dwing Sue, a Columbia University professor, writes, although white Americans are well-intentioned and honestly believe that in the face of racism they would act to end it, the tendency by most to do nothing is more the norm. We have a responsibility to act against racism and oppression. I call on you to begin this action today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Could I submit my remarks to you in writing? Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, no, that's fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Share them with everybody. Thanks. Yep. You're good. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carrie Walco-Henry. I live at 70 Milk Street. I have 2 children within the school system, one at Armstrong and one at Gibbons. And I wanted to come and speak today about the movement of the health and wellness class at Gibbons from 8th grade down to 7th grade, starting next year. And I wanted to share my appreciation for that change, for the acknowledgement that students need this information earlier, and that there is the willingness to make this change now, despite some complaints that I know that you've received. I understand that along with this change for the health and wellness class, the curriculum is going to be revisited this year to look at if anything needs to be updated or added or changed. And I'm not sure exactly what the curriculum entails, So I wanted to request that if it does not already include lessons on consent, that be added. And if it does already include information on consent for the students, that it be edited to contain robust, specific information, not just on consent in general, but on sexual consent, and the details and examples of what that means. This is not just a responsibility for individual families, it's a responsibility for our school committee. And I hope that this could be a small piece of the solution to help prevent the sexual harassment experienced in our schools by children as young as 12 years old. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Susan Reynolds. I'm from 50 Upton Road, and my two students are now 26 and 27 years old, so they went through the school system quite a few years ago. What I do recall is right after they graduated, graduation changed to needing to wear a certain color. They all had to wear the same color gown. You could no longer identify as a male or a female with the color of your gown. So that was, just 8 short years ago. So a lot of things have changed over the last few years, and I'm watching an amazing trend as I go into Target and, see this whole display that's going on. And I go through some of our programs that we have here in town and see LGBTQ+ is in a lot of spaces. I did not see it in the town strategic plan, but there's a number of organizations like Square One and Westborough Connects, and there's definitely community people involved where the school committee, the school department is a part of that, trying to identify what the town really needs. So I'm just concerned, you see our children very young. We give them to you and you keep them in. You've done a great job with them for many, many years, and I applaud that. And we've always been about inclusion and wanting to make everybody feel safe. I do just think that there's times where we need to look back and say, how did we get here so quickly and so fast, and where is all of the funding coming for some of these things? We have Supreme Court justices who can't define a woman, and now we have, transgender trying to compete in women's sports, and MIAA will be ruling on that soon. So I did just want to share with you one flyer that I got at the Wellness Community, which was held this month. And I thought the booth was all about Mock UN, but it wasn't. It was a bunch of flags about joining LinkedIn mentoring. And this is really looking for mentors and mentees who have, the mentors have to have a passion for building the LGBTQ+ community, and they're looking for mentees. So this is not specific to the school committee, but we just need to be aware that this is available. Again, it's a very small percentage of our town, but the way some of it is wording is of concern to me. People come to our town for our great special education. I'm not sure where we're headed next with Westborough, but I trust you all will make sure that things are age appropriate as we navigate the puberty years, which are confusing for everyone, so parents and children alike. So I just wanted you to see this flyer because it raised a lot of questions for me. I've probably made 30 phone calls in the last 2 weeks just trying to understand where this is coming from. Where did the funding come from? Because some of this funding that is leading to transgender getting into sports is pretty dark funding from some very wealthy transsexuals, okay? And it really is taking back Title IX and where we're moving as women. So I have these if you'd like one, or I can just have you pass.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks. Yep.
Thank you.
And thank you. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to
No,
clarify
two
or-
pieces. I mean, I know, I respect the framework that we don't comment during meeting, just two pieces, which I was able to have a really thoughtful conversation with Susan. I appreciated her coming to share her thoughts, and I encouraged her that we're always willing to meet and sit and go through concerns and questions. And I think she framed her thoughts well, so I appreciate that. And I will, certainly be comfortable to sit. I'll look at the notes of the meeting again. I can go back and listen to the comments you made, and certainly we'll pick up a lens around aspects of checking with our admin around what they can tell us around what they knew about different things and what they didn't. I think, oftentimes we're all parts of whole stories, and so I think it's very important to acknowledge that one of the pieces we play as administrative team is to try to pull all of the different navigated pieces of what took place in certain circumstances together so that we can learn from it, act upon it, and move forward. I remain confident in the faculty we have and the effort they want to bring to that work. I appreciate it all, acknowledging that they do that work and then also have where they need to grow. And I appreciate that. Regarding the wellness curriculum, Carrie, we will definitely be putting out more information, and I appreciate your thoughts on consent. So I do remain comfortable commenting around the fact that we will follow up on different things. We use individual meetings. I'm happy to sit with people. As I said, Susan and I were able to talk today, and oftentimes I'll invite a school committee member to join us for those conversations, and that's a context where people share their concerns, but they don't just sit here. We do act on them, follow up, and oftentimes, have more to do. So thank you. Citizen Speak remains something that we use to bring forward the voices of our community. So we kind of heard a wide range tonight, which is nice.
And I'll make sure you get a copy of Allah's comments too.
Yeah, thank you. That would help me, and I can follow up with the leadership team on those cases. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. Do you want me to follow on, Mr. Chair?
Yes,
The
please.
next item. All right. So one of the important pieces I wanted to bring to you tonight, and I want to begin with a commendation of recognizing Jacob Martin and his ability to be a problem solver with Brian Bacon, another worker who's a really problem solver, to look at feeding our needy families this summer. And one of the things we wanted to do was discuss with you an idea around doing a summer grab-and-go food support for our food fragile families. Jacob, I'm going to have you come up so we could just take a moment and discuss this. Jacob and I will work in partnership to talk it through with you, and I've been able to work with Dave on a couple pieces of this as well. So,
Hey, everyone. So like Amber said, we've been researching different ways to do this over the last month or so. And this was really kind of a solid plan for the district and what's going to work for the different schools that may or may not be open, staff that may or may not be willing to work. I do have a handful of staff that are very excited for the opportunity to actually work over the summer and fill in some hours and get some paychecks. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to provide a nice solid sandwich meal for anyone that needs it. Anyone kind of facing food insecurity still after the big inflation and the fallout from the pandemic, as well as we are going to be offering a service to the community education camp at the high school for parents that want to be able to provide a meal that they don't have to worry about preparing the night before or in the morning. So we hope to run this out of the high school and be able to provide a service for 2 different programs.
and to complement that, a couple pieces around how I see us moving forward. I think, the detail of the memo is for you to think through, but really, for me, the parts that I think are pertinent for you to consider, and I am, the goal is to have this in place soon so we could put out communication on it. So I consider it a pilot opportunity for us to try this year and see how we like it. Community education would pay for the staffing under the arm of their work, so they know that we are going to be able to have staff come in and work from Chartwell's, his team to prep the food. They will offer it at, as they do everything, a modest price for campers, and they can use their scan the card to go ahead and pay like they do for regular lunches. He'll produce the weekly menu to give them a picture, and families, it's a real service for families in the summer. We all know what summer looks like. So those campers that are coming in can purchase lunch, and also our camp workers. A lot of those high schoolers are rolling out of bed and showing up to camp pretty early. So I feel like it will be an interesting enhancement. Brian was very excited to make that available to families. It's just one more thing that enhances that experience. And then we basically, the role that I play working with Jacob is just extending that umbrella of that work a little further and making sure then that he preps grab-and-go bag of the same lunches available to our food insecure families. And they will be able to come and pick up food. We will track those numbers. We'll look at that cost. The cost that we will carry is that I've spoken to Dave about leveraging. We do have a revolving account of a gift fund that is available that meets the criteria that for this year we could fund the cost of the food coverage for those food insecure families out of that gift fund, track how we do look at the cost impact, and then I would probably seek, and I might be able to do that between now and the end of the year, some funding. I might approach some of our local groups and different people that I know have always offered to step up and see if they would help to cover some of that cost. And I think I'll be working on it with Jacob to track the positive impact of families that are reaching out to access that. If we got a much larger outpouring than we anticipated, then we would need to be able to look at that funding. The gift count has funding available for that. So can you look up what's in there, just so I know? Yeah. I think what's important, I know there's more than enough money to cover the cost, given the estimates that that Jacob gave me. I think it would end up costing us probably between $5,000 and $7,000 to depending on the scale of families that access the food. And I think I probably will be able to make somewhat of a dent in donations from different companies or organizations. We would then place those donations into the gift fund for that purpose and track all of that through that account. So the part that I would be seeking your support for would be to cover the meals this year out of that gift fund as we look at tracking the impact and the families in need and to make sure that it runs smoothly. Jacob, are there other things you wanted to mention?
That's a majority of it, but yeah, we are very excited, and I think the addition of the camp program could really grow. I believe this summer we plan on doing it like a pilot and kind of see what the feedback is, see what the need is. And then next year, if there's a greater need and a lot of kids are getting these meals, we can start enhancing the menu to provide different things. So I know some other districts do this. They provide food for camps, and it's also a good selling point for the camp. I know some camps do have no food available. So as a parent looking at different programs, it can certainly be an added bonus.
So I guess I would seek your support and open it up for discussion.
I understand that there was some discussion at the legislature of funding such programs. Has that come to pass, or is it still on the
So
table?
we did look, Dave and Jacob did look at some grants, and we preliminarily got an approval to participate in a small amount of, like, I think it was like 2,500 or 3,000. The qualifying guidelines and I won't say strings they attached to it, but the ropes for $3,000, I turned it down because I'm not going to have them dictate where I think we should do this work and how we need to do this work for our community. So their requirements, we sat and looked at them, and they can speak more specifically to it. I was not comfortable accepting the grant. So, their reporting mechanisms and their guidance around what school I have to serve the food out of, I'm like, I'm not going to play. So for me, I feel like for us, year one, we look at running this and see what we think. And if we had a bigger outpouring or I couldn't do the fundraising, we could discuss it next year. But right now, I found their guidelines not to meet our criteria for how we wanted to implement the program.
it's probably good to have the pilot program to figure out all the parameters and then be able to request
Exactly.
specifics of the legislature if they do fund programs like this.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add was, just not to be redundant, was some of the rigor that's applied through when you go through the partnership of Project Bed and their association with DESE. It's similar to taking out a grant. The administrative burden is something that you always want to recognize, and some of the stipulations based on how they defined what actually schools based on the socioeconomic status of Westborough defined where we can actually host this. They had certain criterias that really limited the scope of what we wanted to do in an effort to provide families holistically the opportunity, regardless of of us deeming them socioeconomic status and things of that nature. So they were basically kind of pinned us in a corner of criteria. There was no grab-and-go service available under the DESE and Project Bed collaboration. So we basically, from an innovation standpoint and an opportunity to serve the community, it better serves us. And looking at the revolving funds that exist, they're plentiful enough between community education and the miscellaneous gift fund that we do have to support this. And again, as you mentioned, the trial would be significant in the effort, and I totally endorse doing that, and then kind of assessing if the rigor loosens up between Project Bed and DESE, maybe we can explore it as another partnership. But right now, I do believe it's an opportunity for Westborough to kind of, be the forefront and define how it works best for Westborough, as opposed to living by the guidelines and bureaucracy and red tape that DESE and Project Bed had related to, here's if you want this $3,000, here's a criteria to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with that information, we may have the opportunity to write our own grant. with
Right,
our own
through a
specifications.
different mechanism. I
exactly.
think we could do a GoFundMe, we can go to we have many, ways to respond, but I think equity and flexibility and meeting our families where they are, like requiring that we can't do grab and go, they have to sit there and eat that. I wasn't comfortable with it.
Can I ask a question? Why is there such a range in the total cost? Does this depend on the number of meals that you?
So it depends on the number of meals. It depends on who. I 100% have work. Different staff members make different amounts of money. It definitely depends on how many meals we served. When we added the camp section to our plan last week, that's going to add more cost. Kind of we're serving out of the high school, but we're probably going to be in 2 different locations, possibly at the same time. So that adds a cost. And this is rough costs as far as, the pilot program goes. But the food cost is going to be pretty similar. And it's really who ends up working. And if I have someone at 3 hours a day, but we're doing 300 meals, I'm going to have to bump that up to a little bit more time.
And the number 50, where does it come from?
That was just an estimate. Throughout the year, we've worked with a couple families, so we have kind of an idea on who we're going to be feeding. But I wanted to put some numbers down for you folks to look at and the district to look at. So 50 was a base. That was similar to what we were doing during the COVID feeding. So that's where we came with that.
Okay, thank you.
No, I think the addition of the camp is a great idea. As a busy parent, I would just say go buy your lunch at camp.
Exactly.
So I feel like that's a really great convenience to have. And then to be able to also have meals available for our families that need them over the summer is amazing. I fully support that. And yeah, I'm just curious to see who will take advantage and how many, people we can get the word out to come and, support themselves in this way that we can help them for sure.
Great.
Thank you.
Steve?
I think it's a smart move. I really, I support this, and I think it's a great direction for the school department, so thank you.
Great.
Yeah, I think I support this as well. I wonder, so you're estimating based on what you had last year, I assume, or at some point you were feeding?
Yeah,
back into
in
families?
previous service models during COVID when they were doing it pretty similar to this. It's kind of what they were doing in different parts of the town. We didn't have a solid number. You know, we didn't ask families in 2 months, are you going to come get, you know, a meal every day? So we had to put something together to be projected.
So that 50 number is sort of the need-based.
I would say, yeah.
Okay, all right, so it'd be more than that if you're estimating kids who are gonna buy, the campers or the non-Westborough resident. I think you have that as well, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm good. Anybody else? Thank you.
So can you vote?
Yeah.
Can I
I'd
get a
like to-
motion
I'd like to
to,
move to approve the summer meal support program.
Okay, I'll second.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
thank you, I appreciate it. I think what we will do is we'll make sure end of year in the fall, we'll give you a report summary with a financial breakout, a meal distribution number, we'll have more data. And with your approval here, then what I will do is probably put out a communication that I'll work on with principals that will go out at a building level, kind of giving the parameters of time and availability for families, and we'll keep a pretty wide, comfortable, open net, and let people, if they feel they need food, to come and get it. We'll track our numbers, and I will report to you. I will also start to put out feelers, and you certainly can as well, to the constituencies that you know that might want to make a donation towards coverage of the cost for the food for that branch of the program, and it would go directly into that gift revolving account. We would track it against the cost of the program. So I'll do some legwork on that between now and the close of school, and I think this is a great partnership. Again, I want to acknowledge Brian Bacon, Director of Community Ed, who quickly partnered with Jacob, and those are the kind of people we like to work with. They just say yes and get it done. So thank you, Jacob.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks.
You. Tammy, your turn.
All right, so another important part of the end of the year is an opportunity to hear from our major departments. So you can see Tam's dreaming of summer because she's got the beach scene in there. An opportunity for you to see the end of year reports, so you see the implementation of the work of the district, sometimes for the large financial arm of what it carries, and then also for the large arm of the work it does. So this was a report that Tam did last year, and we also embedded in it this year the FTE annual report, which they designed, which is now part of her update. So it's a pleasure to welcome Tammy Costello here to talk to you. She does an exemplary job in this department, and I am exceptionally pleased to have her on the team.
Thank you. Sarah and Yakub, welcome. It's great to meet you, and thank you for your service to the school committee. Thank you. So let's talk about the world of HR. Right this time of year, as everyone seems to be slowing down and getting ready to go out the door, our 10-month staff, and things are all coming to a close. We're starting, this is my Super Bowl, this is the busiest time of the year, from about now through September. We are we're posting new positions, we're hiring new staff, so we're onboarding all the new staff, and we're offboarding all the staff that's departing. In addition to that, we run 3 to 4, depending on how you look at it, summer programs that we have to onboard all that staff and then offboard them before the summer ends. So it's a very, very busy time of the year for us. There's 2.5 of us. I'm a full-time FTE, as is Bernadette, my HR coordinator, and we just hired Subhashri Vivan Anandan, and she's a 0.5. We share her with payroll. Payroll is an intricate part of HR because compensation is the biggest benefit we give our staff. And there's a lot of overlap between payroll and myself and my team. So that's a little bit about the team. Let me do this. So I'm just going to go over some of these things quickly and then take any questions. Please feel free to ask me as I go along. I don't have a problem with that. So we're going to go over the staff hiring data for this year. I'm going to go over the collective bargaining unit contracts that were negotiated. That was a humongous part of this year. We hired a new director of finance and operations, which we sadly have to say goodbye to Dave. I'm going to talk a little bit about substitutes and absence management. Everyone seems to be interested in substitutes, so I'll talk about that a little bit. I'll talk about the continuation of our equity forward hiring practices, our HR databases, the FTE report, and the focus moving forward. So this is a snapshot of who we hired this year. By this year, I mean anyone that started after July 1st, 23, and it doesn't include the 9 people we've already hired for next year. Currently, we've hired 9 that will start at the end of the summer for next year. 48 teachers, 6 administrators, 27 paraeducators, 26 long-term substitutes. You might wonder why so many long-term substitutes. We had a large baby boom this year, but as a general guideline, the long-term substitutes are covering any absence that is a month or more, which for any maternity leave or an extensive medical leave, not a 3 or 4 or 5 day medical leave, but a medical leave when you have surgery, we procure long-term substitutes for those. So that is, we had 26 of them this year. And then we had custodians and community ed and central office and district technology. So we hired, all in all, 143 people for this year. If you back out the long-term substitutes and community ed, because community ed is sort of a subset of our permanent staff, we have a turnover rate of about 13.7. So for all the other groups, our turnover was 13.7. It's a good number. It's not a great number, but it's a good number. And I'm hoping to get that down next year. I'd be happy if we were around 12%. We are still seeing a lot of turnover, somewhat coming off of COVID, but we do have people, we're still, since COVID, seeing a lot of people just really wanting to work closer to home and work remotely, and we don't work remotely here, so we've seen some turnover with that. But that's just a snapshot of who we hired this year.
That's a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of coming and going. I don't think people realize that churning kind of staffing arm that's part of large districts.
So that means 143 people left last year that we onboarded. We hired 143 more. Some more are going this year, so it's just a wheel. Our collective bargaining units, I actually wasn't going to do a slide on this, and then I said, how can I not when we spent so much time on this year? One of the key things I want to say about this is that I am very happy to say that we have negotiated 6 of the 7 contracts this year, because 1 was settled last year. So 6 of the 7 of our unions, we settled the contracts or are very, very close to settling the contracts. But the exciting thing about that is more so the process than the end result. And the process I found very encouraging, because I was on 5 of the 6 that we settled this year of the negotiating teams, and in all 5 of those, I did not see one lawyer present, and other districts always have legal counsel. We didn't need that, and I think that speaks to the relationship between our administrative team and our unions. So that was very, very encouraging. It was also really nice to see, I got to know Steve much better, and Kristen. We were on several committees together, and of course my coworkers, and Lisa Edinburgh, I was on 2 committees with her. So it was a very, very successful new contract season, I guess we would call it. The bulk of them are they're all FY24 to FY26. Another encouraging thing about it was that we were able to provide for all our employee groups, or our union employee groups, which is the bulk of our employees, really equitable salary increases that makes us more competitive with our other districts while we remained fiscally responsible. So for me, as an HR director, that's really important. I get very excited when the new scales go up on the website, because I'm like, yay, they're up. People can see what we did. So that's just a little bit of how the contract process went. Yes?
I'm sorry, I'm new to all this. Could you just explain, what is equitable salary?
It's salary scales. We did a couple things with salary scales. So first, we always look at we always do benchmarking with other districts. So we're looking to make sure our staff is being in the individual employee groups. You have paraeducators, and you have teachers, and you have tutors, and you have food services, and you have custodians. We always look at our neighboring districts to make sure that we are in line, if not more. And then the second thing we do this year, which made things a little bit more complicated, but also very exciting, was that all of these salary scales have steps in them. So employees go from one step to the next. And we had a lot of variability where, between step 2 and 3 was 2%, and then 3 and 4 was 4%, and 5 and 6 was 2.5. And so we did a ton of work, and Dave was probably so sick of me going into his office and saying, no, we gotta fix this, we gotta change this. So we made all the salary scales have the same delta between each step, which was something I was involved in and really excited about.
Kudos to Steve Durrett and Kristen Vincent for the vision on that work.
Yeah, and I guess I would add to the discussion that the reason why we need to be competitive with the surrounding districts is that what we have, if you will, with teachers or tutors or whatever, if the other district is paying more money, we don't have an employee. So our combined salary schedule and benefits has to be competitive with everybody else around us. Oh, we don't have teachers, and we don't have tutors, and we don't have others who are in the union. So, but the other side of the coin is we can't pay so much that, in fact, we bankrupt the town. So that, as you'll find out pretty soon, Yakub, in your own performance as part of union negotiations, that very tightrope that has to be walked such that it's fair, reasonable, and as Tammy said, we've worked very hard over a number of years to make sure that we hear what our union workers are asking for and saying, and to be fair about how we have a settlement. Clearly, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but the bottom line is we want employees here who want to stay, because once they are here and they enjoy working with us and for us, it makes a difference to the kids. And I think we've done reasonably well in doing that. And of course, with Tammy's having the opportunity to have worked in other districts and then see what we do and how we do it, there are some surprises there, I think. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, it's not necessarily fun, but it is very good, at least in my own mind, to be able to talk to the people that work for us and understand their concerns and things that happen to them, in their own life. And so our role and goal, not to step on your toes, Tammy, our role and goal is to try to have happy workers that are properly compensated for what they do for us.
And
we've
so
done well.
I know we're going to move to the next slide here, but I do want to give a shout out to their very complex relationships. There's a lot of pushback. There's a lot of back and forth. It's just really respectful, intense, thoughtful negotiations. And we've rotated through a whole range of faculty who have joined us on those negotiations, who put in a tremendous amount of time and energy for their colleagues and have come to the table in good faith to trust that the conversations, while difficult and complex, are always going to be respectful and caring. And I think we held to that value, and I feel like we're really wrapping up all the pieces of various MOUs and different pieces as we exit the year here, and I'm very proud of the work. So thanks to everybody that did that.
I just want to add, we're on the same page. I just wanted to understand the definition of that equitable. I guess it means competitive in this context with the benchmark towns.
We did a couple of things that were equitable across, recognizing that if you work a certain way with one unit, you have to have, I think, equitable process for all units, and I do think we do that. It's not like we can say, oh, well, we finished with Unit A and everybody else is going to just have to kind of fall in line. Every unit gets the equity of time and energy and thoughtful respect for their work, and that's what the equity means to me, which is we value every employee in this district, and they all deserve strong contracts. And I think that's what we did this year, where if we found a creative solution in one unit, we were willing to bring it to the table with the next one. And that's equity-based bargaining in my mind.
And just as an example of an equitable salary increase, everyone thinks of the pay scale as the salary, but all the benefits and all the extra payments that we make for things are also part of someone's salary. So one of the things we did this year is the teaching unit, the teaching and nurse unit had a certain amount of money that you could buy back in sick days when you leave. And all the other units, their amount they could buy back was less. And now they're all exactly the same. So that would be an example of an equitable financial benefit that we did.
Thank you.
I can go through this one really fast. Subs, we always need them. I'm always hiring them. It's a great time of the year because the college kids are back. Then they go away and we need more subs. Okay, equity forward hiring practices. This is a big part of what I do, what the district does. It's part of the strategic plan. I've been here a year and a half now, and we continue working on our hiring practices. We brought back Lawrence Alexander, who worked with us last year. He's a diversity expert, and we continue to focus on applicant resumes. We're part of the MPDE, which is the Massachusetts Partnership for Diversity in Education. Only 44 school districts are part of that, and we are one of them. We have that on all of our job postings. You'll see the MPDE logo. NEMNET is an organization which I'm just starting to work with, where they have resumes, and people will post their application materials online, and we go to that website to try and increase diversity, and we've done a really nice job with that. Those are just some of the initiatives. I talked about this last year, and I'm going to just talk about it really briefly about the different databases, because we're going to get into FTEs, which everyone wants to talk about, and I just want to explain why calculating FTEs is difficult, and it's because of our various databases. We have applicant tracking, which is hiring and posting and hiring, and we have absence management and professional growth, and those are all great and dandy. But the two most important ones are PowerSchool and Munis. Munis is our financial system where payroll is and where budget is done. PowerSchool, most of you know if you have kids in the school district, is a student database, but it also has it's also a staff database, and this happened several years ago because DESI requires, and a lot of places require, state reporting, and we needed a database within which to provide state reporting. The way we track FTEs in PowerSchool is very different than in Munis. They're both FTEs, but in PowerSchool, it's primarily for state reporting. And there are certain employee groups that you do not report on because DESI, for whatever reason, does not want to know how many food service workers you have or custodians, community ed, there's a few other groups. They want to know that classroom staff only. Munis has every single employee that we pay, and if you have an employee that works in more than one school, we have a PE teacher that works at 5 schools. She's 0.2 at this school, and 0.2 at this school, and 0.2 at this school. She has 5 0.2s with 5 different account numbers, which makes pulling FTE data out of Munis difficult, which is where I started last year when I began, and I gave up, and I went over to PowerSchool, and we have a better system. That being said, last year was the first year that Scott and I did the FTE report together, which I presented to you last June. And in doing so, the figures on the left are the June 2023 FTE numbers, and you'll see there's really not much fluctuation until you get to the not reported, which I've highlighted for you, because how could you not notice this massive discrepancy? And what I want to say is we did not hire 46 more people. We did not hire 46 more people. This had to do with how we did, how staff is put in PowerSchool. Previously, if you weren't reported in state reporting, your unit was 0, even because you didn't need to be calculated in the state reporting. So this year, I started working on this in April with Scott Henderson, my partner in crime, and we started looking and we realized, oh boy, we didn't include a lot of the staff last year. So when you look at this not reported category, again, it's not that we hired 46 more people, it's that last year we didn't report on those 46 people. The 726 or the 706, I always tell people we have about 700 FTEs, 726 people. because you have various FTEs they work a 0.8 or a 0.6 or a 0.5. So you're always going to have more people than you have FTEs. So for the most part, I don't really have to, unless you want me to go through the fluctuations, because you can see that it was very relative. A couple FT 0.2, 0.4 increases here, few 0.2, 0.4, 0.6 decreases there. We did have a planned 1.4 increase in administrators, but other than that, so the delta from last year to this year is really up 1.75 when you back out the 46. Questions?
There we go.
Very much for that, because I was extremely confused when I saw this in the information that came to us this week. So we'll assume anyway that between this year and next year that the numbers will be fairly close.
Correct, and next year, these FY24, May 24 will be on the left, and then it should be very similar. It should be comparable. And if, I just couldn't fit this on the same slide, but if you look here to the not reported on the bottom, these are the DESI categories. This isn't necessarily how I would characterize, it's not how my brain works when I think of employee groups, but we did it consistent with Department of Education, because if you go to the DESI website, we want you to be able to look at our numbers and compare them to what's there. So you're not saying, well, why did Tammy say this and this says this? So we are reporting consistently with the DESI categories.
I think that this exercise is essential, and the capacity to be able to, down to a 0.1, a point whatever, be able to delineate who's working here, where they are, and how they move from year to year is an essential part of transparency and accuracy in reporting, and coming into our budget structures, being able to have clear and consistent conversations. I think that I feel, while the exercise is painful, it takes a lot of work. It is an essential reckoning each year that she will hold as an annual part of her report. So now we're into year 2 of cumulative data, which feels very good. And I am glad that they made the decision, which we talked about last year, anchoring it so that it parallels to DESI's notations, because you have people on FinCom and different people in town who are looking at that state data, and we always want to be able to answer questions without it taking hours and hours and hours of work. So I feel like we are at that place now, and I feel like Tammy and Scott are quickly able to answer questions for me when I go to them, and that's where I've been wanting to get to, so thank you.
And one other thing about the difference between Munis and Power School. So in Munis, if you are in paid status, your FTE is active. So think about those 26 long-term subs. We have staff that's on maternity leave, staff that's on medical leave, and they are in paid status, and their long-term sub is in paid status. So if I pulled out of Munis, it would falsely inflate the numbers, because you'd have 2 people. In Power School, which is another reason why I like going to Power School, they do 1-for-1. Because Power School doesn't care about money, they're just looking at FTEs. So that's another reason why we use Power School, because Munis, I look at the numbers, I'm like, this is too high, and then it makes me crazy.
So in that case, is the person who's on long-time leave counted as 0 FTE?
In Power School, yes.
Yeah, okay.
While they're out, they're 0 in Power School. In Munis, they're whatever their FTE is when they're in paid status, but then when they go to unpaid status, they're in 0. But it would be really hard to constantly be saying when you go from paid to unpaid. So moving forward, we have started digitalizing all our employee folders, which I love because I can just pull them up on my computer, but we still have a ways to go. We're looking at more synchronization between the databases. The more I get into this, the more I'm not sure if we can synchronize Munis and Power School because they're so different, but some of the other databases are very much synced. Continuing to outreach to hire the best applicants is primary goal of mine, hiring the best people for our district. Vigilant FTE monitoring, this is something near and dear to me. The district I came from, I did this, so it's just done a little bit differently here, but it's my sweet spot. We'll continue with DEI training and our true commitment to equity hiring, and expanding the substitute pool, which will always be on there every year. Any questions? Yes.
One question. Well, first of all,
Let Sarah talk first.
Oh, no, I'm just.
You're all set? Okay, Steve?
I like that.
I don't have a question. I just, last year I did because of the two systems. And so I celebrate the move to using PowerSchool so that you can get that FTE number, because I remember being confused by how you were able to really conclude and you were.
I was confused. I was confused too.
Right, and so there was some
Yeah.
uncertainty in your answer, and so now, I feel very confident in the 1.75, and especially knowing that next year that you'll
We
be
should be
enough
good.
years
Yes.
into this.
Yeah.
So I applaud this move. I think
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a learning curve for Scott and I, because he had never used PowerSchool for that. And then I got here, and I can be pretty aggressive, and I was like, listen, we need to get our FTE count out of PowerSchool. And so it's been a work in progress. He's been fabulous to work with. And, Amber had said when I started, I want to know how many FTEs we have and how many people, so. Jakub?
Kristen?
Go
Kristen?
ahead.
No, you
No, I don't. Nope. I don't have any.
have anything to.
Your turn, Jakub.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for this update. I really like your energy. I think I never thought HR could be so much fun.
You can hang out with me anytime.
Could you speak just a little bit more to the equity forward hiring training?
Yes.
I'm just curious about what it is and how is it conducted?
So last year, with the leadership team, I did a whole presentation and training on equity forward hiring practices. And what that included was how, from the inception, how we post, who are we posting to? Are we reaching all the correct audiences? Are we marketing that we're MPDE? So that's the onset. And then we looked at another thing that I trained and worked with our outside experts on is how we look at resumes. And you need to look at them, and if you discard someone right away because they're not the traditional, what you deem to be a perfect fit, you're losing out on a very diverse population. And one of the things I had talked about last year is we have a very diverse student population, and I find it to be extremely important that those students can look up at the teachers and see reflections of themselves. We're getting there, we're not there. So we did a lot of training on that, and we continue to do training on that. We did training this year, and it's really a work in progress. I mean, we have our challenges because there's not the most diverse population in this area who are looking for teaching jobs. So that continues to be my struggle. I went to the MPDE job fair. We were in Cambridge. One of the hardest things I had was I had several people come up to me because it was mostly Boston and Newton people, and I had 3 or 4 people come up and say, is Westborough west of Newton? And I was like, yes, to the point that Jack Foley, our wonderful principal of the middle school, put a map up, and he put a line so everyone knew where Westborough was. So I've done a lot of talking in MPDE about how we really need to do job fairs that are centrally located, because it doesn't make sense for me to go into Boston when most people who live in Boston want to work in Boston or Newton. And our salaries are less, that is a fact, but it also costs a lot less to work here. So that's where we look at the benchmarking when we do the salary scales. And I am very, very invested in not only hiring the right people, but retention, because it costs a lot, and it's a lot of time and money to have someone come and work for a year and then leave. It makes me crazy. So I would like to have retention. So having competitive salary scales helps. I know I talk
Thank
a
you.
lot, I'm
No,
sorry.
That's great. Last question. No, I'm just curious. How many male teachers do we have in Westborough?
How many what?
Male teachers do we have in
Oh,
Westborough?
gosh, we'd have to do a poll. We have a balance. It's typically, if you look across the schools, and I think we fall typically, and Daniel could probably speak to this, we fall within a typical bell curve. It's harder to find elementary-based male teachers in that K-6 window. When you move up to Gibbons and the high school, you have a pretty equal balance. Actually, it was more heavily male for a long time. So actually, Gibbons and the high school, our teacher balance was more male for many years. It's kind of shifted a little bit recently. And then I would say elementary, it is a rare bird that you find a male teacher looking to be an elementary teacher. We've been fortunate to find some, and many have been excellent, but harder to acquire.
We have just over 400 teachers. I always say 400, but we're rounding about 415 right now.
Tammy, particularly if we ever were drawing people from Cambridge, Boston, and they were using the train to get here, there have been programs for commuters going the other way in terms of, let's call it a discount funding and non-taxable expenses and stuff like that. Do we have programs set up like that, or could we have programs?
We don't.
set
I
up?
mean, it's not something that I wouldn't be open to looking into. The bulk of the employees that we get from Boston, Cambridge, which is a very small number, when they come to here, to our district, they move. That's what I've seen. So we have to be cognizant of what their salary was, as well as what we can pay. So we have to look at things like that. When people are coming from the city, I'm always like, oh boy, we got someone coming in from the city. Let's figure this out. But most of the time they'll move. Most of the time they'll move.
Yeah, I could see it as a temporary opportunity, if you
Yeah.
will, to get them started in that direction, so that that's a consideration. Of course, if you're here and then you have the opportunity to look around,
Yeah.
find a house you can afford. But I'll tell you, living is not cheap in Cambridge or Boston anymore. You know, it's pretty
Right.
wicked,
Or
actually.
Westborough. So, I mean, I think we all know.
Yeah, I think we know
Again,
that.
in equity-based hiring, there isn't a single teacher in this district you would talk to who says that their commute doesn't cost them money, their house isn't costing them a lot of money. So, I mean, the bottom line is, we have to be able to hire candidates from a wide array of all sorts of settings, lifestyles, and skill sets. And so it's got to be our contract that grounds them and our hiring process that invites them. And that's what we can offer. Sarah, I know you were going to jump in.
No, it's okay. In terms of, you were talking a little bit about the turnover rate and how some of it had to do with COVID and people wanting to go remote. Have you seen is there any assessment or data on diversity hires and turnover in that group, or do we not have enough?
So I look at our turnover, and the turnover that we've had has been relative between our diverse staff and our non-diverse staff. When we get to a point where the numbers are larger, it would be worth looking at. I mean, not so much along diversity lines, but more along age. We have found that some of the younger educators who want to get into education, I get asked this question very, very often. Can I work remote 3 days and come in 2? Can I work 2 days from home and come in? And it's not feasible in a school district. And I think that in and of itself is a result of COVID. I think that's a result of COVID. And so I think that that's what's making it harder for us to hire teachers, because I think teachers left the industry during COVID, and then they liked working from home in their pajamas or whatever else and said, I'm just going to stay here. So we're trying to, it's not, I look at the postings every day and I look and I see, and there are certain jobs that are really easy to fill, and then there are other jobs that are really hard, and I keep sort of maneuvering the posting and making it look prettier. And so yeah, I think it's more of that than what you were asking.
Yeah, I mean, statistically, our retention rate has always been very solid in terms of, I mean, most people that have transitioned, we do exit interviews. I mean, I do make sure that I request Tam to sit with someone, or, again, HR is the best group to do that, to process, like, is there something that, some separations are on our choice, let's just, as well. I mean, in the first 3 years that someone's with us, we're giving them a very close look around their instructional trajectory for growth, their supervision, and their work ethic, and their relationships across the 4 standards of supervision, and we don't keep everybody we bring. So some of those are, those separations, and so each story is individual. But I think tracking that data is definitely a piece that we'll continue to grow into.
We also have, I think school districts are a lot more competitive now, and we hired a couple teachers last year that in the fall that left by the mid-year break, which is a huge concern to me. One of them, there was no way that we could have kept her because her district that she came from went back to her and countered at a really high rate. And we couldn't, nor would we, it wouldn't be fair to other teachers to then come back and be like, oh yeah, well, we're gonna give you this. So that teacher left. The other teacher left because she also went back to her previous district. I don't think it was a financial situation, but she said she felt more comfortable there. So I digged in a little bit there with her exit interview. So things like that, I'm always looking at.
I just want to be cognizant of the fact that these are personnel conversations, so I don't want to go further.
Yes.
I mean, these are individual people, and we're a small district. So I think we should focus on moving forward, please. And I think, again, respectfully, you can see that our HR director pays attention to this, but these are individual private conversations. So I want to thank Tam for her work. If you have other burning questions, you can email her, but we have a super full agenda, and I want to keep us moving. And I just want to applaud Tammy for strengthening our HR department to a really, really good place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next discussion is student handbooks review.
Thank you, Tammy.
I don't know how to begin this other than to say in reviewing the handbooks, first of all, if you had a chance to look at them, the areas of change were redlined. And so basically in all of them, I think there were only 2 areas that really changed. The rest were some wordsmithing.
Right.
And perhaps you can speak to the general changes that were made.
Yeah, I mean, typically I won't use the word formality because it is a policy procedure that you vote these changes. However, most of them are typical rollovers of changes of dates, status, tweaks in policy, sometimes new pieces. And so when you, by right, approve them because they represent the policies and practices that we will implement in the school building. And should there be something that comes out of a situation where we would be sued or questioned, the handbook is the basis of many of those discussions. There are no substantive changes this year that are large, or I would have pulled those out and had larger conversations with you around any major policy changes that required longer discussion. Most of these are within the parameters of school-based decision-making around enhancing, like various changes based upon, pieces of school life that they want to make sure they keep clarifying with families and students. I think typically you approve these and they're provided to you so that you have an opportunity to read them at a detail if you prefer. And if you have any questions that surfaced for you, I'll try to answer them. But typically we seek your approval so that legally, right, if I have to defend something in this handbook, it's been approved by the committee.
And I guess one of the other things we've tried to do over the years is to make them not identical, but very similar in the way they're structured as well as the content that's in them.
Exactly. The K-3 are cohesive. And so you're really looking, and then Mill Ponds follows actually K-3 with only additions based upon changes needed there based upon any, different policies related to age. But basically K-6 are fairly cohesive, and then 7 to 12 are almost identical as well. So they've done a lot of work on them in the last couple of years. I think, Dina, it was like 3 years ago, we gave them a big look and cleaned them up and added links. I don't know if you can add any other comments, but.
No, that's correct. That's what we did. I mean, the one thing that, there's new guidance that we have to follow having to do with suspensions that's dictated by the state. And so That's the one thing that might be in there that's substantively different. There was a law that was passed about a year ago.
Just this year. It actually was passed by the Senate, and it was not a DESI policy change, and they are currently discussing it further. It basically sharply inhibited the opportunity to apply suspension, out-of-school suspension, without multiple additional steps. We basically are following the policy as it was dictated and shared with us by our lawyers, and it's reflected in that document. And I think our practice, you can do a 2-day emergency removal while you assess a situation, but then anything beyond that, you have to have had a whole bunch of other steps. If you have questions around that, we really took it as a pilot year to watch kind of how we implemented it, to see if we had questions about any of the pieces we felt needed to be done differently by us. And I think at this point this summer, Jack and Brian and I decided when we had some space in the summer, we would sit and debrief any of the cases they had had and just look for consistency in how we're implementing it.
So with that, I will go from my right to left. Yakub, questions?
Oh, no questions, thank you.
Kristen?
If we see anything in here that we see that needs updating, should we just send it to you or
You can just email Andrea
Andrea? Okay.
directly. Thank you.
Yep.
No questions.
Sarah?
So she's mentioned updates, but if we have any red lines of our own that we would want to suggest, are those also something that we should just email to you to ask?
Those you should email to me.
I'm just noticing like the school committee information is outdated and like little things
Some
like
of
that,
the,
but-
some of the pieces that they have to roll, they know are typical summer work. The secretaries looked at substantive policy stuff that you had to see, but a
Yeah.
clean, because they still have to change faculty names and a whole bunch of things. So
Yep.
those are standard considered edits, but it's really any changes that they would make to policy practice.
Okay.
So with that, I think the next step, unless there's a challenge to this thought, is to move that we approve the consistency and red line that we have seen so far in the various handbooks, subject to additional edits for name changes, et cetera. So is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second and then we can have a discussion. Go.
Well, I just want clarity on that. So subject to any
Subject to.
suggested edits, but not just name changes, substantive edits that
Yeah,
maybe.
any substantial edits based on discussion, with the administration, and if necessary, come back to the school committee for those particular changes.
They will be published for fall use. So, if we need, that's why it's in front of you. And if you have further discussion, you need to surface what topics you want to discuss, and then we would need to pull together either a policy request committee. We won't just change the policy without a process. So it would need to be put into a subcommittee with one of us, Daniel or I, the principal or whatever group would be needed to have the discussion.
Yeah, it's all, I mean, especially in the high school, you can see the way it's written, it's based on our policies, and Brian cites the actual policy number in there many times, so
Right.
If there's a concern, it'll have to be looked at
Yeah,
by the
definitely.
process.
Continue your discussion, yep.
Yeah, I mean, I take the spirit of the motion to be, at least as I moved it, to be the substantial red lines that are present in this, in the handbooks, is what we would approve tonight, short of superficial edits and name changes that may come in the next few days to weeks. That's
Yeah,
all.
and I think to the extent that any significant change needs to happen, that the administration would bring it back to the school committee for us to review it, because we know what we're talking about tonight.
Right, I mean, in providing you the red line, you can approve them by school. You could say, okay, I have no questions on K to 3. And you could approve that block tonight. You can say, I have questions on 2 policies in the high school handbook, and there we would table that and work on answering questions between now and the next school committee meeting. to look at that work and make sure that we don't produce something that doesn't fall within line. If you were unable to vote the policy as you had questions about it, at the close of the meeting, it would be tabled until we could work on it through the summer and approve it by fall. I mean, there's a process we have to use. So I certainly urge you to make the process forward on the ones that you have no questions on, and then it would revert to them to continue to update it for just edits and changes and name changes. And then identify for me the ones that you want to discuss further.
So at this point, we have a motion that's been seconded, and we have had some discussion about what our vote would mean. So with that, if there isn't any further discussion, I would ask for a vote. Hearing any? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I'm going to abstain. Is that
Okay, that's fine. So it's 4, 0, and 1 for the minutes.
So then, just so I'm clear, I need area of concern. If you want to surface those with me, Sarah, you and I can work on any policy questions you have that are in there and refine and respond to any questions you have.
Okay.
You know, again, like when we roll them forward, and again, this is just a part, like there's the stuff we grind through annually. Like this is a fast-moving train. Every year we're moving all of these pieces. They are open for your approval for a reason, and we're happy to pull them forward. So if you want to identify and email the policies you want to review with me, I would move into individual discussion with you, try to figure out what we need to do. And if we need to bring something back here for further discussion, I would try to fast track that working with you. All right? Okay, thanks. Brian just texted me. He's paying attention. And he indicates, yes, the editing work will be done through July and August after all hiring is complete. So we do have a window of time to work. And then our goal is always to have those handbooks because students have to, and families have to read and sign them. I mean, it is a legal document for us. It's a backbone of the support we need to run the district. So.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan.
Brian's
you're
happy
out
to dig into it. I'm, you know, so we'll do that. It might not be the high school handbook, but he's the one texting me right now. All right, thank you.
Okay, the next order of business is the discussion and approval of the stipend list that we have seen and talked about at the last meeting. I would move the stipend list based on the information that I had asked for at the last week, which has been provided and answers the question, to me anyway, of the transparency of what we're doing. Discussion on the stipend list now? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the stipend list? And I think I made the motion. Is there a second?
Okay, I will second.
We'll get there. Eventually, we'll get there. So all those in favor? Aye. That's unanimous, 5-0-0.
Thank you. I really appreciated the conversation on this document. It's like, this is a shared giant package of work we do, and there's a lot of moving parts. So I want to get these memos right to you so you can see them and have what you need. The committees earnestly want to push things in front of you and use the timelines that we have to get this work done. So I will adjust this memo, working with the committee to make sure we, you know, identify the things you absolutely wanted to see this time and make sure you have them again moving forward. So thank you. I think, again, it's like every piece of feedback helps us do better. That's the purpose of your vote and your voice. So thank you. I will move this forward to the committee to do what they need to do.
So the next item is the approval of the, or finalization of the school committee schedule of meeting dates for 2023-24. I'll ask Kristen first. Do you have any comments?
No, I don't have any comments. Nope, I didn't find any issues with any of the dates.
Sarah? Comments? None? Okay.
Sorry.
Yakub?
No comments.
No, Steve? No. We're good to go.
All right, so you don't need to vote that. You need to just keep a live calendar because at the purview of the chair, you can be called to a meeting anytime. But it's really nice to get your calendar in order. And so I appreciate to make sure that we don't settle something on a holiday that starts at sunset. Like it's a really important set of eyes for you and for families and people that want to make sure they're available for our meetings.
So as was mentioned, if we need a meeting, we can create one, either a normal meeting by virtue of 2 days' notice and posting. And if it's an emergency a meeting for the reasons that we can call such a meeting, we can do it. But in the meantime, this would be our calendar with or without a vote, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Shall we move on then to strategic plan, the end of the year reports?
All right, so you're getting two big documents tonight, both relative to just the important work of the district. You're getting the, let me just see, which one did she attach? This is not the document I want. Hold on, let me just see what she sent you. It looks like, there you go, that's one of them. So Daniel, I can do my goals first, but the document, oh, look, she attached a different one than I thought. So the memo that gave you the end of year report is the one that I want to use when I go through this with you. Let me just pull that up in a minute. I sent you two documents on the summary of the strategic plan, and I think she attached, I thought she was going to attach both of them, and I think it looks like she just attached the one.
So she has a this one, strategic plan,
And yeah,
end of year, it says.
that's end of year report is my goals, but then you also have the end of year strategic plan report.
Well, that's what this is titled.
No, that's not what that is. It's
I
not
don't
what they
see it
need.
in the packet, actually.
It's in the packet, isn't it? She linked it in the packet?
No, the only thing linked in the packet is the huge document, but it's labeled strategic planning end of the year.
All right, let me
look.
All right, let me just see. I don't understand what she did. Let me just open it up
Yeah, in the
here.
packet, I don't see.
Daniel, I'm going to share it to you. I'm going to have him, I'm
Right.
going to,
Right, okay.
hold on. I'm going to take a moment here, and I'm going to cover this, and I'm incredibly apologetic
No,
that
it's
this
fine.
is what I'm trying to find.
This is an extraordinary large packet, I want to say.
Yeah, but hold on.
documents.
I need to give you this document, and I'm going to have to just look for a second, so
Yeah.
talk amongst
Talks
yourselves,
amongst
please.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, hold on. What am I looking for? I'll find it, Daniel. I'm going to share you into it.
Okay. Ready.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to do my goals, and then I'll come back. Can I circle back to this for a minute, since I'm going to, hold on. I would say in my 9 years, this is the first time this has happened, so I apologize. I'm wondering if when she did the update of the agenda, she somehow mislinked the one she wants. I'm going to do,
Is it the document we were working on, the WLT last week?
yes, and I renamed it. It's the, hang on. That's what I get for not opening every document myself. Okay, end of year strategic plan. Okay, I have no idea. I found it. I'm going to give it to Daniel right now. And I apologize again. You can, Daniel, you have it already, but I'm going to resend it to you. All right, here's the document that I want to open, and I'm sure you can't even comment tonight, given that you didn't get this document. So let me tell you what I did and how I've set this up and what I'm sharing with you. And again, I apologize for the wrong document being linked. So that document, the strategic plan report, the one that Daniel just opened and is available, is a big document. So I never provide it to you that way. I always provide a summary. This is that summary. So I'm going to step you through it, and then this is available to you to look at on your own. All right. It's just a summary of all the work this year. And then all of this work is embedded in that large document. All right. So annually with the strategic plan, we have made all sorts of links available that let you see the trajectory of the work. In the mid-year report, I shared that with you, and you could see those links, and I provided some highlights for you. Over the last several weeks, the leadership committee was working on providing closing updates on all of their work that's taken place between now and the end of the year. I then use that working with them through the summer. So I'm going to use this document to guide you, and then I'll make sure all of you have it, okay? So last year you received the report, you voted it, and then you received in March a mid-year, and this is the end-of-year report that I'm sharing with you. You know it centers on the 5 major organizational themes of the district, and my purpose in the end-of-year report to you is to summarize all the work that's been done since the mid-year report, and to provide for you a snapshot of the fact that the strategic plan is moving forward effectively. So Dana, if you want to scroll down a little bit to the summer, in the summer, just go to the next paragraph right there. The summer, you're just going to have to scroll for me as I work this through. The summer leadership retreat provides an opportunity where we basically take all of the work we did this year, we look at where we were behind, where we were ahead, and we use the summer to do the trajectory of planning for the next tier of work. The details are wide-ranging and ambitious and take a lot of work to keep continually updated in the spirit of continuous improvement. We made really good headway this year on our goals, and we have areas where we were behind and where we were ahead, and you can see that characterized in this document. So then what I did for you that would help you is you can see that the full plan is linked there for you. That's the document Andrea gave you. And when you scroll down, what you'll see is under each of the major categories, the team provided for you, and then I've organized and done more work with it, things that have been captured in all of the major priority areas in the plan. So for example, just so you can make sense of it, underneath teaching and learning, we have 6 major areas of work. You heard about that mid-year, and then you see highlights listed here of the work that the team provided around all of the types of work that happened since March to the end of the year. And what they've gotten provided in there for you is a lot of work on climate action plan changes. If you scroll down, Daniel, please. Yeah, right there. So you're seeing here now how they've
Let me
organized.
interject for 1 second. In case school committee members want to look at the report, it's now linked to the agenda. So
Okay, thank you. I apologize.
proper. I just know that some people are following along on their laptops.
So what I did for you was I basically took all of the major categories and I've told you where that work took place. So if you look under teaching and learning under priority 1, these are highlights that the leadership team is providing for you around work that they did between now and the finalization of the year. It provides for you a really on-the-ground live sampling of the samples of work that represent real, authentic implementation. I think it's the best kind of way to share a report with you. This is the stuff that they literally said, I did this, here it is. We just finished this, here it is. They linked it and they organized it so you can see what your teams are doing on the ground that develops this work live time with students and in a building. You see this interdisciplinary work around climate action with notes around the things they did around updating different types of curriculum across all sorts of topic areas. At Mill Pond, you see they did a lot around climate action work with a project camp, which was very, very cool. They received substantial grants for this and worked with the Audubon Society on it. If you want to keep scrolling down, Daniel, right there, thank you. Gibbons did work around their summer academy that they're going to continue again this year, doing a whole thing around PLC-based learning around model cities, which was very, very successful. And scrolling down, you see more work around climate action and the different themes that they worked on, as well as the substantial progress we made around beginning to get a toehold around thoughtful recycling and composting, if you want to scroll down further for me. I've categorized these for you. These are all priority 1 underneath teaching and learning, different goals that we've accomplished. And if you scroll down further, we also had a priority around enhancing the work around makerspace work. And we kind of had a quiet phase on that goal. You remember at the mid-year report, I reported that as behind target. And between now and that report, they've begun to reestablish the working committee team they're using to make changes to that work, and they were able to report some of that to you here around areas where they've made progress, and you can see some of the meeting notes they used. If you scroll down, Daniel, these are all their authentic, updated reports to you around the things they've been doing on the ground related to this goal. You see Hastings Makerspace activities, K Makerspace activity photos, and resources and work being done in this area all around enhancing the K-12 trajectory of Makerspace goals. There's more to be done on that, but what we'll do basically is we'll look at what we accomplished in that goal, we'll talk about where we were behind target and where we made good progress, and then this summer, the different leaders attached to that work will outline where they need to go next. If you scroll down to one of the curriculum goals around technology, we needed to go back and do some work on K-3 to enhance the curriculum supports around them moving one-to-one. And we did work around the technology curriculum related to responsibility of social media and work and things related to that we updated around this curriculum work at Mill Pond. And if you click on those links, you can see all of that work and what they did related to it. And you see there the K-3 library technology focus under priority 2. And you see under professional development for support staff, work we did. One of our goals this year was to enhance the quality of paraeducator education to make sure that they had robust training and supports for the work that they do. They do such incredible work with our students. And you can see that we also enhanced our safety care training coursework, and there's a course description attached, and we had full participation throughout the school year on district-wide professionals that needed to be trained. They also did work with our paraeducators around UDL and provided for them the same enhanced PD work around universal design for learning that we provided to faculty. If you scroll down further, you'll see that one of the other target goals was health and wellness curriculum review work, and you see that the tracked changes around the health curriculum and alignment with the goals, as well as if you scroll down, you'll see planning opportunities for where they plan on heading in the spring with curriculum writing work as it's mapped out. If you scroll down further, you'll see that you're going to see around priority 4, you're going to receive the English program review coming up at the next meeting, and then that work will go into kind of implementation planning this summer based upon the report you receive on the 6th or the 7th, I think it is. And then you see under WEC, they have their own strategic plan related to targeted goals across the whole strategic plan. And she put in notes there around different pieces of curriculum development that they've been working on and different areas of anti-bias differentiation of curriculum and different things that they've done across the strategic plan and are embedded in their notes. The borough has their own strategic plan as well around the targeted implementation of all the strategic plan goals, and that document's attached. And then you see our enhanced work 3 to 5 for priorities 3 and 5 for all the work that Daniel and the team and Sherry built to provide really strong faculty training around UDL based practices in the district. We'll be debriefing on that and then moving forward to plan for next year's work. If you look down around wellness, you'll see I took the same kind of trajectory of organizing this document for you. I'm basically showing you all of the work that we did across mid-year to now, and the faculty's provided those types of things for you. In some areas, you know, they could go on and on about what they've done to support staff. They put in one or two things. I mean, we don't want to bog people down, but I want to call out the fact that our faculties continue to provide luncheons and notes and ice cream and, you know, ways to try to do on-site wellness with each other and all types of things to kind of keep the work environment up at the different buildings. Like the high school does like Friday breakfast like once a month where everybody can come together. And, you know, there's a lot of this that goes on across the district. And so I didn't do a lot of categorizing of that, but I just will give you probably in the final doc that's online, I'll add a couple other examples. And then if you scroll down, you'll see that under communication, we did work around the parent night and homeschool connections. One thing that I'm pleased about that I wanted to share with you as part of this communication is that we wanted to do more with media outreach and more like information around our curriculum and learning. You know, we came back and did an update, Sarah, on the SEL work. And then I'm happy to report, if you scroll down a little further, Daniel, that, go back, sorry, right there, sorry. The superintendent, we have a new media show being launched in a neighborhood near you. I will be doing a superintendent spotlight, working to do video presentation work on different themes. And so we're hoping to basically launch, we did the budget video as like an exploration. We just completed an SEL video working with Roger and Kim and I, and we anticipate that going out next week, and then we'll rerun it in the fall and post it to the website. And we hope to then do a June one on how to make your summer meaningful at the family level and share tips and highlights across different grade levels as an example. And we'll do that as our next spotlight in June and then open it up in the fall with how you prepare to come back. And we'll pick different topics and themes and run shows when we have relevant content we want to provide. And that'll be video format that we can then push to families with additional notes and links and resources. So feeling pretty good that in a year where we were doing that much negotiation, which took a huge amount of time, that we were able to at least get a target anchor with this goal in this year and are exiting with kind of a framework and a plan that we've been able to develop. LPAC has some great notes there around that work to develop that parent group and then to interface them with all the other extended groups across the community and in our schools. And you have the tech report that was done by John when he was here, grabbing a bunch of different goals that he reports on. Lastly, if you get management and operations, you can continue to peruse this document as you'd like to see the different things we did. Around operations, one of the things we added was the Mill Pond Club. They did a 6-week cycle of rotation of clubs. Really a nice priority add around enhancing opportunities for programs and services. And that falls under priority 2, enhanced quality experiences for families and students to access new programs. And then under facilities, you see some highlights around that work. We're waiting on then different pieces, but you've got information you can look at. If you scroll down a little further, I would just say that the closing of that, if you just go to where it says closing, which is, you know, the strategic plan captures detail at a pretty high level of work going on across the whole district. And this still remains just a sampling, but it gives you both a record and a picture of how we developed this year's goals. I think an important thing to note is that we're still in recovery ourselves around our stamina for how much we can push initiative work and the things we want to get done. Adding the UDL this year was a really substantial callback to professional development work that the staff stepped up for really meaningfully, but it was not an easy lift, and it was hard for people to get back into the rigor of some of those things that sit on top of your preparation and your workload. So again, I hate apologizing too much, but I apologize this document was not linked for you. And this is your reference document that you can use to float in and out of all of the links that have been provided for you. And all of these are linked in the larger document. I just didn't want you to have to like surf through that document to find the things we've been doing. So my job is to basically, I pulled them all out of the document and organized them for you, and you can see the work. And if you have any questions, again, it just adds to where we go next. Summer work is where we head to kind of like take the next steps. This document is for your end of year review, one of my benchmark documents, but it's also really, it's not about me, it's a piece of this, but this is representational of the leadership team and the faculty across the district. And I think I just want to applaud our team and the work that this district does to stay relevant and to dig in and do this level of work year to year, most of which is invisible. And I like the fact that this new document format gives you really authentic samples that you can go in and look at. And this is posted on the website. So people talk about transparency. You can hop in and out of these reports and these presentations and these samples. They're all available on the website, and you can direct people to them. It's helpful for people to say, oh no, actually, you might be able to look at that, the ELA reports, posted as one of the ways that we overlap this work for people to be able to see. So that is the report I wanted to provide for you tonight. I think I would encourage you to spend some time kind of in this memo to kind of float through the things that were provided. If you have any questions, you can email me or call. I'm happy to talk about it. And this serves as a record of this year's work. So I guess that's it. Sorry for my document failure.
You recovered well.
I did a lot of work on this. Can I just say I spent last weekend here, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, making sure this looked good for you. Yeah. So the fact that the wrong document got linked is probably upsetting me more than you. But, I feel like I kind of put a little blood, sweat, and tears in it. And then I wanted to hope that you have a chance to look at it before I was talking about it. I just want to give a last shout out too, as part of this too. The design work and implementation of this document really was done in an extended subcommittee work with Sherry Stevens, Brian Callahan, and Chris Martin, who really wanted to work, and they did a great job working with Daniel at the last leadership meeting to kind of like open this up with the team, and they did the vast majority of this work. So that's it. I would say if you have questions, it's going to be more fair of you to ask me next time. I feel like you haven't had a chance to surf through different pieces of it, so I don't feel the need for comments or anything. Certainly you can make them, but when you do my review, if you want to fold comments in after you've been able to look at that, you can do that as well. You good?
Good.
All right. So our next document is this is the other one, if you can pull this one up, my end of year summary of personal goals. So a couple of you are still somewhat new to this process, so I keep kind of explaining it as we go to be supportive to you, but again, this is a snapshot of my overall work. So when I do this goal, I pull out ones where I'm focusing. There's a lot that I do that doesn't fall under this at all in terms of these notes. For example, you've watched me do the budgeting process. I'm not going to put a lot of detail in here for you that way. You have other documents. You have anything I provided to you this year. This is a snapshot on some of the areas of special focus, and I'm going to step you through that. I'll lead with the conclusion. It's always good to do that. I annually self-prescribe a performance benchmark as part of self-assessment. I definitely think I was functioning in a solid proficiency this year, and I noted myself as proficient overall. And I'll back you through kind of how I came to that conclusion. So you can see that the mid-year is in red, and then I basically grow a short. You don't need to read hours and hours of documents of me telling you what I think. I try to give you a snapshot and rely on you to assess your feelings about my benchmark of performance. One of the areas I was looking at was successfully implementing the new strategic plan document. And so in purple here, you can see I indicate that I feel I met that goal. I feel like the important piece for me and for you as well is that the leadership team has demonstrated ownership and understanding of the document. It's not okay if only I understand it. And so I wasn't at the meeting last week when Daniel and Sherry and all of them led the work that started to pull these pieces together for you. And I needed to be out of town, and they ran it on their own because it's their document as well. I represent a slice of it. And I feel very good that they innovated the document and they cared about finding ways to bring it to the public. I think as a team, we were able to work through goals meaningfully. We table some and modify others based upon the energy and traction we're getting with different goals. And I feel like overall, it was very successful. I'll step through each of these, and then if you have questions. My student learning goal was really looking at supporting the implementation of our focus work on UDL. That made me a small participant of a massive amount of work that came from the whole team. So it always feels somewhat awkward to me if I'm holding up benchmark performance of things I do, because I can only accomplish what the team accomplishes. I play a role in leading that team, keeping a sense of tension and urgency around work, but the intellectual capacity of the team, is driven by a lot of people. This goal design is owned heavily by Sherry Stevens and Daniel Mayer, who worked very closely together to create a methodology. Sherry had a passion and a strength of push around the UDL work. Daniel had a vision for framework and implementation that could access all faculty, and together they kind of created magic this year. Hard magic in the sense that, it was a hard lift for faculty to carve out. It seems like a small amount of time to say, find 10 hours to take an in-depth course that you fold in on top of your work. And, it was not an easy lift. And faculty brought themselves to it, and it took us a lot of work. And I would say we had highs and lows, but what I really love about it was that faculty put their ideas on the table, and if they agreed or disagreed with pieces of the work, was really good conversation, and everybody demonstrated progress because they were invested in the conversations, and there was really good online content for them to explore their thinking. So I indicate that I met this goal, and if you want any individual thoughts on that, you can always call Daniel, and he'll tell you, pieces where I enhance certain parts or things that, I could add to it next year. I thought it was really ambitious of us, and I was really proud we did it. Like, we take risks. If we can't take risks, we don't demonstrate openness to learning. My district improvement goals, then, I basically model for you the areas where you have to evaluate me. And there's more underneath each of those categories, but these were areas where I took some special focus this year. Instructional leadership is one of the major areas. I feel like around the areas where I was doing some work, strategic plan, I said I met. UDL, I think overall we exceeded that goal. Wow, it's not that late. That's it, it's so good, lights out. So the sustained faculty development and the DEI committees, I feel like we're below target on that because we took the committee that we originally formed, rested while we did work on the hiring with Lawrence Alexander. I feel like and we did the umbrella work of looking at DEI work through the UDL lens. And I think what we want to do is we need to circle back and do this more depth of work around work with self. We did some good work in attending a course. Daniel and a couple of us went to make sure we re-immersed ourselves in some cultural proficiency coursework so that we could better assess the next steps of the district working together, and I feel like we're cued for that work to occur with more depth next year. So when I look at those target areas, I would say, if you look at, I think with around our green initiative, I feel like I met those goals. Those are hard to get traction on. There's more, the one piece, one of the things that I held on was starting the green task force. And I just think people didn't have an appetite for too many new committees. They were busy, just kind of read the room a little bit, and we'll launch the task force in the fall. And I think now that we have traction on the composting and more thoughts around where we want to go next, people are looking to have that task force implemented. And we have students asking for the task force. So that feels very good. Hallie Pellish, who's be joining us, is a big activist member in that work, and she wants that task force. And I promised her that we would get it up and running. And it's just that group we can bring together to have them do kind of a train the trainer model to go back to their buildings and keep things moving. I feel like we're a little below on the STEAM work with the makerspace. Again, like there was several people that had been on that committee that transitioned out. I marked it as below target mid-year, and I feel like we made progress between now and the end of the year, but it's an area Daniel and I both agree we need some more targeted growth on next year. We also had a new science coordinator who needed a year to kind of like get her umbrella look at the district. And so by mid to end of year, she was kind of like, oh, sweeping in there and kind of re-anchoring that next phase of work. I summarized that for you in the purple comments. You can read those on your own. Engage, if you scroll down, Daniel, it just says next. I'm sorry, I know this is so tedious for you to have to scroll away here. Just take it down to right there. So if you look at this standard to manage or engage the district in meaningful supervision, coaching, and evaluation, if you go up just a little bit, there you go, right there. I feel like I met those. I feel like, you know, we sustain strong on the ground working meetings. We don't cancel meetings. We get together, we keep our supervision in place. I feel like we meet that easily, but it's a matter of digging in. I have to complete my end of year summatives on all my people. So for me, that goal is still closing with the target of having those done by June, by the end of school. And if you scroll down further, around management and operations, you know, I hit the vast majority of those as met. I feel like Daniel and I have been talking a lot about this, that empowering the extended faculty work with more voice and more input so that we get a wider kind of stakeholder engagement is just a piece of work that is a target goal for us, some of with the extended leadership work we're doing, but some things we want to really lean in on next year to pull more short-term voice work in from our faculty. And I think, you know, I feel like we've had some good discussions about it, and it's a piece of work that we need to do more on. I don't think you're ever done with that, and I don't think you've ever met that. I mean, if you look at, when you look at like people's feedback, they'll say, we need more voice, we need more information. So I can't mark that as met a target if you see that in the feedback. And certainly in the trajectory of my career, I've never hit that one. I think it's really hard to get staff to say they feel like they've got information and they feel included. And so, you know, I think I just acknowledge that, and I would never mark that as met or exceeded when I feel like the staff wouldn't mark it that way, right? So that's just an authenticity that I feel like I just have to kind of own. And then last, I feel like I feel like I'm a strong fiscal manager for us, but we certainly had the struggles this year in the entry in the fall, and I feel like we successfully navigated those. But when you look at the conceptual approaches for the new financial director, I'm kind of starting back again. So, you know, with David's transition, I now have onboarded and am meeting regularly with a new director of finance, but it does mean that there were target goals I wanted to hit that I put on hold. And so, you know, I'm going to be retraining someone again in the fall, and that takes a lot of time and energy that's invisible. And I need to be able to dig in and start that again. I think if you get down to the bottom there, You'll see that I provided commentary for you on all the different pieces. Obviously, you can read this on your own. I don't need to drag you through it. And I provide a summary for you. I think it's been, a very successful year. I think it's really funny. I feel like the faculty at the end of the year, like my hopeful energy of the fall feels somewhat flagged when we get to the end of the year. We've been working hard and running all year, so you kind of like, how do you feel about the year? I can be like, I'm tired. So that's just human nature, and our faculty's in exactly the same place. Like, this is a very fast-moving machine here. Like, you look at Tammy's report. We changed 100 and plus people this year. You have to greet those people, bring them on, build them in, like off-board people. Like, I don't think anyone has an idea of what this machine looks like. And so when I have to sit back and assess it, I feel like I generally feel like I'm underperforming because it just feels like there's so much to do. But I know I do good work too. So I feel like my self-assessment always represents both of those pieces to you, which is what I earnestly wish I could do more work on. Like, I would love to be able to spend more time on communications. I got my foot on the ground with it this year with some improved vision. I know what it should look like. It's a trade-off. I'm a big on-the-ground manager. Like, I believe in the presence of management on the ground. Daniel and I spend much more time in schools than any other superintendents and team. And our team tells us that has value to them, but there's only so much time when we're looking at meeting those targets. And so for me, I feel torn as a leader between those two targets. Serve my parents with lots of content information, which is just a cultural norm, and lead that, or support our staff on the ground. And that comes through the meetings we do with our leaders. So those are the two big branches of my work, and they can sometimes both be invisible to each other. I feel like I've had a very strong year overall, and I think that, the challenges of leaving our parent community feeling supported is always feels like by the end of the year, they're kind of tired too. So, everyone's at a place where it's hard to remember the trajectory of the whole year. So I finished this year feeling good about this. This is my 9th year with you. So I have a longevity of focus that lets me see the highs and lows with perspective. This remains an incredibly hardworking faculty, and I think they've had a great year. If you get inside the walls of our buildings, the energy is good, the focus is excellent, kids look happy, they look productive, faculty are having engaged relationships, and it's all those other things from the conversations that parents will come and share. So, that's just what it is to be in public education. I defend this staff to the highest level of support in the sense that I see their hard work, and I think they've had a great year. So that's my summary. You don't have to comment because you get to evaluate me, and you can comment then. These are for you. This is my time to provide a little feedback to you. I am, between now and when you provide your summary feedback to the chair, I am available to meet with you, talk with you, go online and look at things you want to check on or questions you have about the feedback I've given you. The surveys are out in public, so the surveys are out. I can tell you that as of today, I have 154 faculty comments. I'm trying to let them sit out there. I have 7 from our Portuguese survey, 6 from our Spanish survey to families, and we have 422 from families. So, there's data rolling in and comments and things. So I'm letting it sit through the close of this week, and then what I'll do is I have to download it, make the screenshots, cut the comments, and take out all the names. I do all of that, and then I'll forward that document to Kristen and Steve, and to you guys as well. I mean, I basically give you the bulk of it. I just pull names and things. And so that is the last piece that you'll get from me. I'll probably put out another reminder on Monday to families and faculty and thank them, and I'll give them a snapshot of some of the things they've said to encourage them to kind of go in and add more. All right. So now you officially have everything you need. I hate to bog you down with too much, but I hope that will give you what you need to complete our review work by the next meeting.
And I'm just finishing up the Google form that I'll send to everybody. And it just gives you, it'll link to this Amber's personal goals document that she shared with us and the strategic plan document, and then just a reminder about the survey information. And then it's basically just for every one of the standards, you just pick 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you can make all kinds of comments that you want, and it all just gets dumped into a spreadsheet, and then it's just, it'll be compiled, and then Steve will just put together in a summary.
And typically, he tries to, we usually have a phone conversation or we'll sit together briefly just so like there's no shock surprises for me, which is, it's a public review and whatever feedback you share is always great and helpful, but it's kind of nice for me to like adjust my face ahead of time and have myself kind of in a good place. So Steve will literally look at that and be like, give me some highs and lows so that I can kind of have a little time to adjust, and then we go from there. Okay.
It's my final comment on anything. This is one of the toughest reviews that anybody having a job ever has to go through. Entire 360-degree review is what this is. It's basically asking everybody to take pot shots at you. It's tough. So, yeah, and
Well, I mean, you often hear about the extremes. So you hear from someone who's extremely disappointed or upset or had an extreme challenge. You hear from folks who are very excited and having great experiences. And then there's a whole group of people in the middle.
And the survey work helps give people a chance for that bell curve so you see pieces of it. Yeah.
Thank you.
well, unless there's something else, do we have reason for an executive session?
We do actually need a brief executive session.
Okay. Well, with that, we should roll call vote to go into, I'll make a motion that we go into executive session. Need a second, and then we'll have a roll call vote.
Would you like me to make the official?
Yes, please.
So I love doing that. I make a motion that we vote to meet in executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining the tutors contract, and under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to review and approve executive session minutes from April 26th, 2023. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And we'll do a roll call vote.
Yakub?
Moscow, yes?
Vincent, yes.
Dorette, yes.
Bachelor, yes.
Chim Sudin, yes.
Good. So
It's official.
All right.
we're now into executive session.
Thank you, Westborough TV.